Warning. This program reflects the views of the individuals participating in the discussion and are for entertainment purposes only. They do not reflect the views of Bad Bob Productions, its affiliates, or partners, and should not be considered official endorsements or legal advice of any kind. This channel is not recommended for children under the age of 13. Parental discretion is advised. Well, hello. I'd like to introduce myself. I am Base God 14, and this is the Base God Live, also known as the Bass God Live. It's been, I think, a couple weeks since I actually went live. I'm trying to be more regular in my content, and I'm trying to figure out a day that I should be doing this. I'm leaning towards either Thursday, which is today, or Tuesday at this point. I don't want to do Wednesday because I know Doomcock is on Wednesday. But anyway, I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do with this particular channel. And I decided I'm primarily going to be promoting my toy stuff. But some stuff has happened in the last week or so, and I want to talk about it. So tonight I'm going to be talking about Kirstie Alley. I'm going to do my tribute to Kirstie Alley and her untimely passing, if you're not aware. So I want to talk about that. And as far as the toys go, I'm going to do a hold, sell, or trade on original Star Wars toys that I recently cataloged from my personal collection. So that should be a fun thing. But let's go ahead and delve right into Kirstie Alley. I do have a article ready to go here, and I'm going to go ahead and share that with you. So here we go. Let me make sure I am running solo, obviously. So I just want to make sure that you can see it. So this is a People magazine article. It is dated December 6th. This broadcast is December 8th. And it says, Kelsey Grammer, Jamie Lee Curtis, and other stars react to Kirstie Alley's death. You were, quote, one of a kind. Kirstie Alley died from cancer on Monday. Her children confirmed to People. It says Hollywood is remembering Kirstie Alley after her death. On Monday, True and Lily Parker, the two children of the Cheers alum, announced that the Emmy-winning actress had died from cancer. She was 71. As news of her death circulated, many stars shared tributes for Alley to People and on social media. In a statement to People, Alley's Cheers co-star Kelsey Grammer said of the news, "I always believed grief for a public figure is a private matter, but I will say I loved her." Fellow Cheers star Ted Danson and Rhea Perlman also expressed their sadness in statements to People. Quote, "I was on a plane today and did something I rarely do. I watched an old episode of Cheers. It was the episode where Tom Berenger proposes to Kirstie, who keeps saying no, even though she desperately wants to say yes. Kirstie was truly brilliant in it," Danson said. "Her ability to play a woman on the verge of a nervous breakdown was both moving and hysterically funny. She made me laugh 30 years ago when she shot that scene, and she made me laugh today just as hard. As I got off the plane, I heard that Kirstie had died. I am so sad and so grateful for all the times she made me laugh. I send my love to her children. As they well know, their mother had a heart of gold. I will miss her." Added Perlman. So Rhea Perlman also said, "Kirstie was unique and a wonderful person and friend. Her joy of being was boundless. We became friends almost instantly when she joined the cast of Cheers. She loved kids, and my kids loved her too. We had sleepovers at her house with treasure hunts that she created. She had massive Halloween and Easter parties and invited the entire crew of the show and their families. She wanted everyone to feel included. She loved her children deeply. I've never met anyone remotely like her. I feel so thankful to have known her. I'm going to miss her very, very much." Good picture, by the way, there of Ted Danson and Kirstie Alley. Alley's friend and fellow Scream Queens alum Jamie Lee Curtis shared a photo of the two of them from the Fox series on Instagram. Quote, "I've just heard the sad news that Kirstie Alley has died," she wrote before saluting Alley as a great comic foil in TV Scream Queens and a beautiful mama bear in her very real life. And there's a picture there of Kirstie Alley with Jamie Lee Curtis. Speaking to their personal bond, Curtis continued, "She helped me buy onesies for my family that year for Christmas. We agreed to disagree about some things, but had a mutual respect and connection. Sad news." By the way, it's nice to see somebody say that, because I know that Kirstie Alley was very political, and obviously politics is very polarizing. And it's nice to see that at least some people apparently can agree to disagree and still have some respect for each other. Tim Allen, Alley's co-star for the 1997 film For Richer or Poorer, tweeted, "A sweet soul pass on in Kirstie Alley. Sad, sad news. Prayers for all her family." John Travolta, who starred in the 1989 film Look Who's Talking with Alley, wrote on Instagram, "Kirstie was one of the most special relationships I've ever had. I love you, Kirstie. I know we will see each other again." And there are additional tributes as you go down here of other co-stars and famous people talking about her. Incidentally, it's kind of funny. I noticed in this article they don't mention William Shatner's reaction to the death of Kirstie Alley, which I think is kind of weird because he actually did tweet about her. He did mention he did tweet about her passing and condolences. I assume the two of them weren't really close or kept in touch or anything like that. But it's like he did tweet about it, and I think that's pretty relevant, especially for me because I'm a huge Star Trek fan. And so with that, I did want to mention I wanted to talk about some of the stuff that, of course, Kirstie Alley was involved with that I felt a personal connection with. The biggest tribute I can always give to any actor, director, anybody in the film business is if I have physical media that you were on. And I wanted to show this. This is, in my mind, one of the greatest movies ever made. Okay, it's literally in my top 5, movies of all time. My top 5 favorite movies of all time. Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. I think this movie is phenomenal, and Kirstie Alley is a huge, huge, huge part of this film. By the way, this is the director's edition, a prized possession of mine. It's got 2 different discs and everything like that, a bunch of behind the scenes and stuff like that. Phenomenal movie. She does a phenomenal job. As I understand it, this was basically her introduction to Hollywood. This was like her first big role. And she does a fantastic job in it, especially being a Vulcan. Because I think that's a difficult thing to do for any actor, is to play a Vulcan. And she did a fantastic job in this movie. And I just remember I saw the movie in the theater as a kid, and I just remember loving the movie. And of course thinking, wow, who's she, that kind of a thing, because she was, a striking, very attractive woman at the time that she made that. So definitely, that's the highlight for me. But another big thing, people always talk about, of course, is Cheers. And I do have another article I wanted to share here. This is actually from the Decades website. And for those that don't know, Decades is normally like a digital sub channel that you can find on the air. I do believe there's some streaming options for Decades. I'm not sure what they are, but I believe there are some streaming options for Decades as well. But personally, I watch it very regularly, almost daily. I watch Decades. And one of the reasons I watch is because Cheers is on Decades. So this article was posted December 6th. It says, Decades remembers Kirstie Alley with a special Cheers tribute. And it says, with 2 Emmys to her name, Kirstie Alley was a force to be reckoned with on TV. Though remembered by some as the Vulcan Lieutenant Saavik on Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, Alley's most well-known and beloved role was as Rebecca Howe on the legendary sitcom Cheers. Decades will be running special episodes of Cheers all week long, highlighting some of Rebecca's best moments. Tune in each weeknight at 11 p.m., 10 Central, for fan favorite Rebecca episodes. Then tune in this weekend for a special Decades binge of Cheers as we remember Kirstie Alley. The binge starts December 10th at 12 p.m., 11 Central, and runs throughout the weekend. And then it has a list of all the different episodes that are going to be shown this week. This is Thursday, so today we've got the Improbable Dream Part 1 and 2. A description, Sam loses his chance to date Rebecca to a Forbes cover boy. And the second part, Rebecca quickly forgets about Sam after she agrees to go to California with a wealthy bachelor. So this is, of course, the introduction of Robin Colcourt. Really good episode. And I really commend Decades for doing this because uh, I watch them regularly, and they just restarted the series. In other words, they just got into like I think maybe episode 10 of the first season. So they've recycled Cheers on Decades. And once the news came out that Kirstie Alley had died, the very next day they had the first episode with Rebecca Howe, which I thought was really cool that Decades did that. So, and it's nice that this show is still on the air. I mean, I think Cheers is obviously a legendary show, and it's really awesome that Decades is doing this again. For those of you that uh, maybe have an antenna, scan your TV and see if you can get Decades. If you can't, I'm sure there's some streaming options out there that you can check out, that you can get this probably for free. Um, Again, I don't know what they are because I use an antenna. But if you don't have an antenna, I'm sure you can find some streaming options, and check out Cheers. It's a great way to remember Kirstie Alley. One other thing I want to mention is the graphic that I chose for this for my tribute. This is actually from the film Runaway. And I think this is actually a really, really great picture. In fact, I'm going to take the banner down just so you can totally see the picture, because I think Kirstie Alley looks fantastic in this picture. But she's sitting next to a robot. And Runaway is a film, in my mind, that is kind of like a cult classic. It didn't do well at the box office. I don't even remember when it came out. I saw it on TV probably within a year or two after it came out. So it came out in like 1984, so probably around 85, maybe 86 is when I saw it on TV. And I was absolutely fascinated by it because I always have been into robotics, and there's some great animatronics in this particular film. And that alone is a good reason to watch it. Plus, it really has a neat idea of the future and how robots might be perceived and how robots might be used in a society where personal robots are actually the norm. And also, it gets into some of the problems like runaway robots. That's why it's called Runaway. Tom Selleck plays a police officer where that's his specialty. He's basically somebody who deals with robots that are malfunctioning. And Kirstie Alley's character is actually the girlfriend of Gene Simmons' character. Gene Simmons is in this movie, so if you're a Kiss fan, that's another reason to watch it. And Kirstie Alley Gene Simmons plays the villain, and Kirstie Alley is his girlfriend, and she does a really good job in the film. I would say she is kind of overshadowed by Gene Simmons and Tom Selleck, and also the female lead, who is, if I remember right, Tom Selleck's partner, a police officer who's Tom Selleck's partner. But it's a really good movie, and I think it's really overshadowed because it just didn't do that well at the box office and just didn't find a great audience at the time. But I definitely would recommend that and check it out. And again, I really like this picture. I think this picture is a really great picture of her, and it just shows how great looking Kirstie Alley was. And I know there's some controversy about her because of her politics and her tweeting and stuff like that. But that's not really the reason that I'm giving a tribute to Kirstie Alley. It has nothing to do with her politics. It has to do with the fact that she was a great actress and quite frankly, a very, very good looking woman, especially in her younger days. I know she had some weight issues and stuff like that as she got older, but she was, I just watched, just a couple of days ago on Decades, I watched that first episode where we first see Rebecca Howe through the eyes of Sam, and Sam's like first words to her like, like he's just mesmerized by her, and of course he immediately wants to hook up with her. But sad news. It was very sudden. Like I had no idea she was sick. I actually went on her Twitter and I wanted to see like, was she sick? Was she talking about it? And according to the statement from her family, this came upon her very suddenly. Her last tweet, actually, I looked at was actually wishing everybody happy Thanksgiving, and she used a Peanuts, Peanuts cartoon, Charlie Brown cartoon for Thanksgiving to wish everybody happy Thanksgiving. And it's a sad thing, stuff like this unfortunately does happen. 71 isn't exactly young, but it's also not like, really old. I'm sure she She could have been around for a lot longer, and it's a sad thing. But again, the best tribute I can always give is that I have physical media with her on it. And so that's my tribute to Kirstie Alley. Rest in peace. And again, the best tribute I can give is I have one of your movies, and I love it. Oh, incidentally, I did see Look Who's Talking in the theater. I remember that too. I did actually see that in the theater. And I always kind of forget about that sometimes, that she was in that as well. So very illustrious career. All right, so let's move on to hold, sell, or trade. So for those of you that don't know, hold, sell, or trade, original Star Wars. So the hold, sell, or trade, the idea here is that we are going to look at items from my personal collection, much as you would view a stock. If you use something like E-Trade or some other kind of broking firm for acquiring stocks or mutual funds, they will often say hold, sell, or trade, right? The idea being, they rate stocks, and we're going to kind of do the same thing with toys, and we're going to be looking at original Star Wars from my personal collection. And looks like I got some spam I got to deal with. All right. So yeah. So basically, with the stock options, right, they'll give recommendations of, buy, hold, or sell, right? That's the way that people look at stocks. But we're going to be looking at my personal Star Wars collection that I just recently unearthed. And we're going to be asking the question, should I hold, sell, or trade items from my personal collection that I've been cataloging? And I've gotten into selling items at toy conventions and things like that. So I'm really looking to see what I want to do. On a personal level, one of the issues I have is that I've got these items in storage and they're not being displayed. And it's like, if I am going to hold them, I need to figure out a way to display them. Like you can kind of see back here, I do have some items displayed. They're not all mine, by the way. Some of them belong to my kids, but that's just a very small display right there of just a few figures. And I've got so much more. So, and we're going to get into it. So I'm going to show you what I believe is my complete collection of the figures from the Ewoks cartoon. And I am curious what people think as far as whether they consider this original Star Wars. I was getting into some collectors' channels recently, and I saw somebody that was collecting, quote unquote, the original Star Wars collection, but they only went through Return of the Jedi and I guess the original Power of the Force line. And I even asked that person, like, how come no Ewoks? How come, no, I mean, he had the live action Ewoks, but it's like, how come no cartoon Ewoks? How come no droids? And he told me that he just wanted to focus on that original lot. But personally, I consider the droids and the Ewoks cartoon lines to be part of the original, the original line. And I know some people disagree with that, but I think if you're a true completionist of original Star Wars, you have to include droids and Ewoks. As far as I know, I have every single one of them because it wasn't a big line. So let's get into it. So show the this is the king of the Dulocs. So let me get that banner down. King Gornesh, a Duloc. He is the king of the Dulocs. Let's see what it says on the back of his coin. So obviously I have the coin. I apologize that the images aren't that great. I was taking these pictures with my phone and I didn't have my glasses on, so I couldn't tell whether it was in focus or not. And obviously this one wasn't, but you can read it. It says, king of the evil Dulocs, who leads them in attacks on I can't read that word, on their distant cousins, the Ewoks. So basically, that was one of the premises of the Dulocs, was that they were actually cousins of the Ewoks. We never saw any of them in any live action form, but here's the figure. And I think that these pictures actually came out pretty decently. You can kind of see the side. As far as I know, he's complete. I think one of the issues with these figures is that the tails sometimes might break. You can see he kind of has like a crown that I'm sure sometimes gets broken. And of course, the accessories get lost. So as far as I know, he is complete, as I remember. Um, Mike Wolf, he said, you have to include 100 R5 droids, bro. 100 R5 droids. Interesting, Mike Wolf. I'm not sure exactly what you mean, but you have to include 100 R5 droids. If you can clarify, Mike, I'd appreciate that. And I think what you're talking about is my claim that if you really are a completionist of original Star Wars, you got to have both the droids and the Ewoks line. That's just my personal opinion. I'm curious what you think and what other people think as well, as far as that boast that I'm making, that if you don't have these, you don't have the original line, in my personal opinion. So again, as far as I know, I have all of these. So this again is the Dulak King, and I do have the coin for it as well. And King Gornish, right? King Gornish. I really don't remember his name at all, so it's like really foreign to me. I do remember this character. This is the sort of the Dulak shaman. Okay, he was supposed to be sort of like the Dulak equivalent of Logray, right? I remember him from the cartoon. He was on there a lot. It says the professed Dulak medicine man who steals Logray's potions by becoming invisible with magic soap. It's funny. Just reading that now, it's like I'm trying to remember that whole premise that he used magic soap to become invisible and steal potions from Logray. But I do remember this character. He actually is pretty vibrant looking, in my personal opinion. You'll notice that he does have like a necklace, which I think this actually gets lost quite a bit. Obviously, I want to show that his tail is intact, and he does have his stick there, his medicine, wand or whatever you want to call it. So I think with this figure, a lot of times the necklace gets lost, and I would imagine the strands get broken a lot too. But I wonder, I kind of wonder like how much these things were actually played with, because obviously this stuff came out at the end of the line. I played with them. I mean, I was really into the Ewoks. I know there's a lot of Ewok haters out there, but I was into the Ewoks as a kid. And quite frankly, everybody I knew was into the Ewoks. I feel like all this Ewok hate is complete revisionism from guys who just got too old. Mike said, I can clarify, if you like OG Star Wars, you should have an army of those awesome R5 droids. Gotcha. Best droids of the original trilogy. He says, best droids of the original trilogy and the best looking. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate that clarification. So you really like the R5 droids. I gotcha. Which, by the way, I'm having trouble remembering what the R5 droids actually are. And yeah, you clarified that they're the best looking. I'm trying to remember what they are exactly, and I am having a blank right now to remember exactly what the R5 droids look like. But if you want to mention to them maybe something to help jog my memory, I would appreciate that. So moving on to the next of the Dulaks, there are 4 of them, by the way. This is Urga, and I do have the coin, obviously, and you can see the back. King Gornish's constant consort and partner in his dirty deeds against the Ewoks. And again, I apologize for the lack of focus. I'm even having trouble myself reading these just because of the lack of focus. But again, when I took the pictures, I didn't have my glasses. I didn't realize a lot of this stuff was out of focus. So yes, this is the female Dulak, and not much to say about her. She doesn't really have any accessories. She has kind of like this little like cloth thing that I think would be like almost impossible to lose, because you'd have to like forcibly take it off, and you'd probably have to break it to get it over her head. But you can see, her tail's intact. I imagine the tails do get destroyed sometimes on these figures, especially depending how you store them and from play and all that kind of stuff. I will say this: you kind of notice in this picture that her one of her legs is kind of in a weird position. She's very, very difficult to stand. And I remember this even as a kid, and you can kind of see how her feet are weird, because she's supposed to be like in this walking stance, I guess. And it's very, very strange. She's very hard to balance. And I remember that as a kid, as I was trying to, balance her to take the picture. I remember when I was as a kid, like, I remember thinking, why the heck are her feet like that? Because it's just so awkward and it's so weird. And just the way that the figure is made, the balance is really, really bad. It's really, really off. So again, hold, sell, or trade, right? Hold, sell, or trade. That's the idea. Hold, sell, or trade these Dulocks. This is the female Duloc, Urga. So hold, sell, or trade Urga. What do you guys think? What do you think? We got another comment here. And Mike Wolf clarifies, it's the red one that Luke bought from the Jawas, and then it broke. Then he bought R2. I wish I had that Ewok line too, man. They are so expensive. So they are expensive, as you're saying, Mike. So if you have any insight on that, please let me know, because I wanted to do this live and I didn't really research like what these figures are going for loose right now. My understanding is they are rather rare. It's one of those things where like it was an unsuccessful toy line, right? So because of that, these items are kind of rare, actually. So if you have any insight on that, Mike, please let me know. But my brother does have an R2, and now that you clarified who R2 was, I do plan to show my brother's collection in a future episode because he is looking to liquidate his collection as well. In fact, I found 2 of his figures with my figures. When I found these figures that I'm showing you now, I found 2 of his figures. I actually found his Stormtrooper, original Stormtrooper, and original Princess Leia. And so in a future episode, I plan to show my brother's collection. I just want to clarify with him that that's okay, because I've been cataloging his stuff as well. So in a future episode, I will be showing his R2. In fact, that item is actually just a couple feet away from me in a box. But again, that's my brother's, and I want to make sure he's cool with it. And then I'm going to show his stuff. Right now, I'm just showing stuff from my personal collection. So yeah, I totally know what that figure you're talking about. And it's a cool figure. It's a very cool figure. I definitely like droid figures for sure. Live action droids or the cartoon. So moving on to the next Duloc. This is the Scout Duloc. So this is your army builder. It says, typical of the many Dulocs, distant cousins of the Ewoks who live in the swamps on Endor. I like how it's like even the description is very, very like, it's very bland. It's very general, right? But this is what this figure was. This is the Duloc Scout. He's an army builder. I didn't get like a good angle. I mean, you can see that his tail is intact. I wish I had gotten one on the side. I think I actually did take one on the side, and it came out so poorly that I decided not to use it for the show. But you can see like, his, I guess what you call like his hair and stuff are still intact. I imagine that stuff gets broken, and you can see he has his accessory. He has his club. In fact, the way you see him now is the way I found him. All these figures are like in a bag in storage at my mom's house. And this, he still had the accessory, the club in his hand, which I imagine that is an issue. Accessories get lost quite a bit with these things. So let's see, moving on to the next figure in the line. This is the one and only Wicket. Here's the coin. I do have the coin. Wicket, the Ewok Scout. And it says on the back, Wicket's friendly, adventurous, and mischievous nature makes him a leader among other young Ewoks. And I think I might have messed up, by the way, with the spear. I think that might be the live action version's spear. I think I might have twisted them, and you'll see I do have the live action version as well, but I think I kind of switched the spears. So I don't think that is actually the appropriate spear. I think I got them confused when I was doing this. It's very hard to kind of pose them because I remember this was always an issue. He doesn't hold the spear very well. But he is awfully cute, I have to say. I really, this is one where it's like, yeah, I think I'd have some difficulty selling this one. But again, hold, sell, or trade. This is the animated Ewok with coin. And I think, again, this is the wrong spear, but I do have the right one. I think you'll see when I show the picture of the live action version that I actually screwed up and I posed him with the wrong spear. Michael says, yeah, I'm from the Netherlands, man. So the Ewok line is really rare to buy locally here. I bet they're more common in the US. That's a great point, Mike. So you're from the Netherlands. And I do know that as far as I know, I mean, the line was released out there. You obviously would know more than me, but I'd be curious about that. I feel like as I'm kind of like just remembering past research and stuff, I feel like it was actually fairly popular in France, is kind of what I remember. And if you can clarify that, if you know or not, I feel like the line actually did better over there than it did here in the US. And I know that I know one phenomenon that happened quite a bit as far as European releases of American toys is a lot of times uh, the line would be more successful in Europe than in the United States. And like for instance, I was showing my DC animated collection not too long ago, just a couple weeks ago, and I actually have a Supergirl figure that I know was a European release, and I actually had to special order it, mail order. I couldn't find it in a store here in the United States. So that's one of the interesting things. And if you have any insight on that, I'd appreciate that because I know that happens quite a bit. Where like again, like this is like the Superman animated series, the 90s series. I know that that series was not very successful here, but a lot of other figures were released in Europe. So I'd be curious if you have any insight about the Ewok and the droids line over there in Europe, and as far as if they're variants or anything like that. But again, I do think that I posed my poor Wicket with the wrong spear here, so I do apologize about that. And for anybody who knows, you'll see the live action version in a little bit, and you can tell me whether I did indeed. In fact, actually looking at it now, I'm just like I'm almost 100% positive that is the wrong spear. That's the one that goes with the live action Wicket, not with the animated version. Unfortunately, I do not have the coin for Logray. I don't know what happened to it. It's kind of weird that I have all the other coins, but I do not have the code for. I don't have the coin for Logray, and I wonder how rare that is. But this is Logray. This is the animated version of him. He definitely is very interesting and distinctive looking from his live action counterpart, which I'll be showing in a little bit. But this is Logray, and he does have his accessory. He does have his staff, which I think is very cool. So again, buy. Well, not buy. I already have it, so I can't buy it, but hold, sell, or trade. What do you guys think? Should I hold on to these? As I realize that I basically have the entire collection, and it's very hard to have the entire collection of anything, right? That is one of the nice things about something like the Ewoks line, or specifically the Ewoks animated line, because they're so limited. I mean, that's it. The figures I just showed you, that's it. The only other figures out there are prototypes, as far as I'm aware of. And I would be curious, especially since I have somebody from Europe that's talking. I don't know if any of those other figures got released, because there were supposed to be a lot more Ewok animated figures. I remember seeing the pictures of them. Like they were going to have Chief Chirpa. They were going to have the female lead, which I can't remember what her name was. I kind of just vaguely remember the cartoon. It was a long time ago that I watched it, but I have essentially the complete collection, right? I have basically, this is it. This is the entire collection of the Ewoks line, of the Ewoks cartoon line. And I think if I was to sell it, I would sell it as a complete collection. The only thing I'm missing is the coin. So I guess one thing I could ask, as far as if you think, if I do want to be a true completionist, should I go ahead and try to acquire the coin? Which I wonder how expensive that would be to find Logray's coin, since I don't have his coin. Apparently I lost it, which is really weird because again, I have all the other ones. And Mike says, to be honest, I don't know if it was more successful in the EU compared to the USA, but I'm on some Facebook pages that sell a lot of vintage Star Wars, and they are quite rare to get. He says maybe in the rest of the EU, but as far as the Netherlands goes, I'm not sure. And he says, and Mike says, hold on them, man, especially if you got the entire collection. Those are going to be worth some money, man. You could get some good money for that in the EU. So appreciate your recommendation, Mike. That's the whole point of the segment, hold, sell, or trade. So you're saying hold, and I'm kind of the same mindset, to be honest with you, because it's really hard to have the complete collection of anything, especially when you're talking about Star Wars, right? And so I have the entire line. It was a very small line, and I got them all, right? I got Logray, I got Wicket, I got the Duloc Scout, I got the female Duloc, I've got the Duloc Shaman, and I've got the Duloc King, So, and with the exception of Logray, I have all the coins. So I'm kind of agreeing with you. I think I am going to hold on to these. the big question would be, maybe should I try to get that coin? Because that is the one thing that's missing from my collection. Should I maybe do that? And the other thing is, in my mind, I need to figure out how to display these things. I need to get them out of my mom's storage, and I need to display them if I'm going to keep them. So if you folks, have some display options and ideas, let me know, because I really feel like if I am going to keep this stuff, they should be enjoyed. They should be out there. They shouldn't just be sitting in storage. I mean, literally, this stuff, I found them in a bag in a box, in my mom's storage. So it's like, yeah, I got to figure that out. Now we're going to move on to the live action Ewok collection that I have, and I'm only missing one figure, which I feel like I totally had the missing figure. So if you know what I'm talking about, you will realize I'm missing one live action Ewok, and I'm kind of like really scratching my head, like, I'm sure I had that one because I really liked the Ewoks as a kid. I mean, I just was really into them. And I really feel like there's just so much hate now with the Ewoks with adult collectors. And I don't get it, because I know they loved the Ewoks when they were kids, because I was alive back then. I'm 46 years old, and I know everybody loved the Ewoks when they came out. But now, as like bitter old men, people are like, oh, I hate the Ewoks. They're so lame. Yeah, everybody loved them as kids. So here's my live action Ewok collection. This is the one of the two archers. And I imagine one of the issues with him, of course, is that the bow gets broken. You can actually see my bow is a little bit bent, because this is the way I found him. He has a good grip. And this is something I think a lot of collectors appreciate, right? Is when the grip is really good on a figure. I mean, this figure has been, like I said, just sitting in a bag in storage for like decades. And it has warped the bow a little bit, but it's not broken. And you can see he has his hood. You can see that he has his this is a little fuzzy, but you can see that he does have his quiver, right, for for the arrows. So he is complete as far as I can tell. The bow is in pretty good condition. And I can't remember what the name of this particular Ewok is, so I'm just going to call him Archer 1. So this is Archer 1 of the Ewoks. He is complete. Hold, sell, or trade. Hold, sell, or trade on the Ewok Archer. By the way, I'm kind of wondering if this one was if these are supposed to have coins or not, and I can't remember. And I don't know if they were supposed to have coins or not, because I think some of these figures did have coins, but I don't remember which ones. But again, I don't seem to have any of them as far as the live action ones. So on the Ewok Archer. Mike says, dude, I found a Logray coin for 144 euro. That is the cheapest as I can find, and it's from EchoBase EU. That's like a Facebook group where I buy from, and it's all collectors for friend, quote unquote, prices. And he says, those coins are so expensive. Okay, so thanks for that input, Mike. I really appreciate that. I'm going to look into that EchoBase Facebook group, especially because I do plan to do a future Star Wars episode. So I want to promote that. And I want to, like, right now, the only Facebook group I'm really on is a G.I. Joe Facebook group, because I did a previous show on 80s G.I. Joe. And you might, I don't know if you're a 80s G.I. Joe collector, Mike, but you might appreciate the fact that I found some rare figures in my collection that were actually, I thought they were Mexican G.I. Joes. They're actually Brazilian, but I bought them in Mexico. I remember when I bought them in Mexico. So I found some variants. They're not bootlegs. They are licensed G.I. Joe figures that were apparently produced in Brazil, but I purchased them in Mexico. And as far as I understand, those figures are extremely rare. So again, I am curious if there are some variants out there, especially with you being in Europe, if there are variants of, say, some of the stuff that I'm showing that maybe have a different version over there in Europe that's maybe highly coveted, or very, very rare. I'm just starting to get into that. So moving on with my live action collection. This is a big one. This is, of course, Chief Chirpa. And as you can see, he's complete. He's got like his headpiece. He's got his staff. And I didn't take any other angles, or they just were so bad I couldn't show them on the air. But this is my Chief Chirpa figure. He looks like he's in pretty darn good condition. When I was, posing him, he looked like he was in pretty good condition. So hold, sell, or trade on the Chief Chirpa. And what do you guys think? I know one of the issues, even from when I was a kid and playing with these things, a lot of kids, for whatever reason, they would take the headdress off and they would lose them. And I never really understood that. Even as a kid, I didn't understand that because I was really big into like trying to keep my toys in pretty decent condition. I would lose guns a lot because guns are so small. And you'll see that with my collection. I've got a lot of missing guns. And but like this obviously came out later in the line, so I was a little bit older, right? When these came out, these were basically like the last figures, right? The last wave of figures from Return of the Jedi. So it's like I just remember a lot of kids lost the headdress, and so I feel like that does help the value of it, even as a loose item. The fact that I do have the headdress, so hold, sell, or trade on Chief Chirpa. Mike also says there is an Echo Base Benelux and an Echo Base UK group. People do ship to the US. There's also an Echo Base Vintage that does not only sell Star Wars, but also other vintage stuff. You should look it up. I definitely will. So there's an Echo Base Vintage that does not only sell Star Wars. So I'll look into that. I know there's in the US, there's actually a fairly popular podcast called the Echo Base podcast, I think. So I kind of wonder if they're affiliated in any way, but obviously Echo Base is something that makes a lot of sense for people that are into Star Wars. And you mentioned they all look pretty mint, man. I would hold them all. There you go, Mike. All right. I'm curious, Mike. I mean, are you just a collector, or do you actually sell items? Do you trade items yourself? I'm curious about Mike, where you're coming from as far as if you're just a collector or if you actually do, trade or sell any items yourself. Again, this stuff is all from my childhood collection. So this is all stuff that's just been sitting in storage basically for decades. I mean, I just cataloged this last weekend. So this stuff is kind of hot off the presses for me. And again, my big thing is if I can't display it, why am I keeping it? If it's just sitting there in a box, I'm like, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense unless, you think, hey, this is only going to go up in value. If you really feel like these are true commodities and that these are going to be like just going to go up in value, maybe I should hold on to them. I don't know, but I feel like to enjoy them, I need to display them. And by the way, I do have the wagon. I do have the Ewok battle wagon. It's in a box just a few feet from me. And I do plan to show that on a future episode where I do vehicles. I don't have a lot of Star Wars vehicles, so I'll probably do just vehicles in general. Like I'll include some of my G.I. Joe stuff that I found recently. I actually found a yellow lion from the Voltron line. It's the one that actually has the 3.25 inch figures that fit in the line. So I found that. So I've got kind of this mishmash of vehicles that I still have that I haven't sold. And in a future episode, I'm going to show that. And one of the things I'm thinking about, if I do keep these Ewoks, I want to take the battle wagon out and I want to display it somewhere, but it's hard to display because I don't have a big place. And I want to put all the Ewoks on the battle wagon. That's what I'm thinking right now. So I actually do have a plan that if I do hold my Ewoks, I want to get that battle wagon out and I want to display all my Ewoks on the battle wagon. One thing that might be weird is, and I'm thinking, just kind of thinking out loud, is maybe I will actually put the animated Ewoks with my live action Ewoks on the battle wagon. And I think actually technically, I'm trying to remember if technically did the battle wagon come out for, I think it actually did come out for the Power of the Force line, because it was never shown in a live action show, but it was shown, in the live action movie, I should say, or the live action show, because there was a live action show. There were live action TV movies for the Ewoks. So technically there was a live action show, but they only showed the battle wagon in the animated show. I know that. So I do have the battle wagon. And again, in a future episode, I'm going to be showing my vehicles. And just because I don't have a lot, it's going to be a mishmash of Star Wars, G.I. Joe, Voltron. I mean, basically whatever I've got, I'm just going to start showing it because I don't have a lot left. And so I'll probably just do like a vehicle episode one of these days where I'll show my battle wagon. But if I do hold this stuff, definitely probably going to go ahead and display them on the battle wagon. Mike mentions, I'm just a collector, man. I do got some vintage, but not much. I do almost got the Shadows of the Empire line complete, and I'm more into Power of the Force 2, but like vintage Star Wars is definitely going to go up in value, but it is expensive to buy now. So imagine what it costs in 25 years. Well, that's the gamble, right, Mike? Like any commodity, right? That's the gamble. Will it go up in 25 years? Or are we at the peak? that's part of why I'm doing this show. I'm trying to look at this stuff the same way that, people look at stocks and commodities, right? Any stock or commodity. It's like, do you really think the price is going to go up? Or are we at the peak right now of Star Wars collectability? And a lot of people will argue both ways, right, Mike? Like, some people do think we're at the peak and it's time to sell. It's time to liquidate, especially if you don't have an emotional connection, right? I watch Reserved Investments. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, Mike, but he talks about that, about, you kind of want to sell into the hype. You don't want to buy into the hype, right? So if you do think that these things are peaking, it's probably not a good time to try to acquire them, for sure, right? But if you think that they're going to keep going up, well, that's an argument to hold them, right? To keep them. That's kind of what I'm trying to talk. That's really what I'm talking about here. And you say, buy a display cabinet, man. If it got like a square of glass, it won't get much dust in it. And if you don't smoke, they should stay pretty clean. But don't set them in the sun. Very good advice, Mike. That's something that I definitely think about, is getting like a nice display case. I actually have some display cases in my living room, which is just right down the way here. And right now I have my dad's old chess pieces, because my dad was into like the Franklin Mint type stuff, which is just a whole nother discussion. Actually, I think I would like to do a show on my dad's Franklin Mint collection one of these days. My father has passed, but he really got into it. And to be honest with you, I feel like that stuff is completely worthless, but they're nice. Like, they're nice chess pieces. Like, he had, my dad has passed, but I have them now. Like, he has like a classic Star Trek chess piece. He has next gen chess piece. He has a Flintstones versus Jetsons chess piece. He has a Looney Tunes chess piece. And as far as I remember, they're all from the Franklin Mint. So I do have a display cabinet, but there's stuff in it right now, Mike, is what I'm trying to tell you. So, but that is a great suggestion. We are not at the peak yet, Mike says. I would recommend buying Thrawn stuff now. And then when the Ahsoka series goes live featuring Thrawn, that's going to be easy money. Yes, that makes a lot of sense. So, on my previous show, which I still have archived on this channel, if you want to check it out, Mike, on my previous, I did a show called the Retro Rogue Live with Dave Beatty, who is a former Marvel and DC artist. And we actually did talk about that, the idea of we talked about it more with Marvel, but of course Marvel's part of Disney, but we talked about that Marvel bump, which happens when a show comes out. In fact, we did a Collector's Corner segment on that old show, and I still have a lot of those videos archived on my channel if you want to check them out. And we talked about that a lot, Mike, like that Disney, let's just call it the Disney bump, right? Basically, that happens when a show comes out, right? There's always like this big bump. So one thing that I would say, and this is something that I said back on the old show, and we were mostly talking about comic books, by the way, but that's definitely something that you want to kind of sell into, right? And I kind of like your thinking that you're like, hey, get the Thrawn stuff now when it might be a little bit cheaper, because it's going to get that bump, right, when the show comes out. And I think you're completely right about that, Mike. And he says, that's some cool chess pieces, man. Yeah, I will feature my dad's Franklin Mint stuff on a future show. I think that's interesting. And the Franklin Mint is really something that's kind of interesting to talk about too, because it's what do they call that? It's Reserved Investments talks about all the time. It's like forced scarcity, right? Like it's manufactured scarcity. That's kind of the idea with something like the Franklin Mint. It's like marketed as a collectible. And a lot of that stuff, to be honest with, I think is not worth very much. It didn't really work. So the next Ewok I've got here is the second Archer. Again, I don't remember the name of these characters. I don't think they were, I don't know if they were actually based on. Well, I'm sure they were based on characters we saw in the show, or not the show, the movie. Yeah, I don't remember the name of this. This is the second Archer, though. It's kind of funny how similar they look, right? If not for the headgear, they almost look exactly the same in my mind. But you can see that he's complete. You can see that he does have his bow. He does have his quiver, and he does have his headdress. Again, I feel like a lot of kids, even when I was growing up, for whatever reason, they would take the headdress off and they would lose it. And so mine is complete, and I think looks pretty good. So this is the second Ewok Archer. Hold, sell, or trade for the second Ewok archer. This is another character that I can't remember the name. I remember really liking this character. He actually reminded me of one of the characters in the Ewok television movie. And if you remember that, the first Ewok television movie, that was the Ewok Adventure, I think what was it, what was what it was called. There was a character that was like he was an axe guy, and he was a really really cool character. I remember really liking those Ewok television movies. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I have Disney Plus. I should just watch those movies again and see how they hold up. Maybe I'll actually do a review on a future episode where I talk about those old Ewok episodes. But anyway, that's what this character reminds me of. That's not what this character is. He's not from the Ewok Adventure. He is from Return of the Jedi, but I don't remember his name. But he does look to be complete. He's got his, it looks like he's got like a horn, right? And then he's got his axe, which is kind of neat. And of course, he's got his headdress. And I feel like this is one that the headdress was much easier to lose, right? Because like the headdresses for the other Ewoks, they kind of just, you kind of have to deliberately take them off. But this one, I think, is a little bit looser, but you can see that he is complete. So I don't know why I'm saying buy. Hold, sell, or trade, right? Because I don't need to buy this. I already got this guy. So this is, again, the axe-wielding Ewok. And this is the second Ewok scout. I can't remember his name. He kind of has a unique spear that you can't really see too well, unfortunately, in these pictures, but he is complete because his spear has like 2 heads on it. But this is the second Ewok scout. I know that. I just don't remember his name. But you can see he is complete. I feel like this one maybe did have a coin, and I don't have it. I can't remember, but I feel like he might have been later, not the Return of the Jedi line, but the Power of the Force line. And I feel like he may have had a coin, but I don't remember specifically. But I do remember, I always remember even thinking as a kid, this was supposed to be like almost like the older version of Wicket or something. Like obviously he's not Wicket, but he's also a scout, and he's also kind of smaller than the other Ewoks, other than Wicket himself. And then we have, I think, a big fan favorite. If you do like the Ewoks, this is of course Logray. This is the live action version. I also have the animated version, and you can see that he is complete. He's got the headdress, which I feel like his headdress falls off quite a bit. A lot of people lose it, and he also has his little like satchel, his little man bag, if you will. And he does have his staff, although you can see here, and I kind of wanted to show that in the picture, his staff is bent. So he's not very mint, in that regard. But he is complete. And hold, sell, or trade on Logray, the live action Logray. And of course, this is the final piece of my Ewoks collection, at least from what I've been able to find. This is Wicket, who of course was the most popular. And I do believe, looking at it now, that is actually the animated version staff. That's the staff that's supposed to go with the animated version of Wicket, which you can see I do have the live action version as far as the staff goes. I just paired them wrong when I was doing the pictures. So I think he's actually holding, well, he's not really holding, but he has the animated version of himself, his staff. And you can kind of see him here at another angle. I love this figure. I think it would be very hard for me to part with this figure. I always really liked Wicket, especially not just because of the movies, but because of the television movies and because of the cartoons. So I don't know if I would really want to part with this one specifically, but again, that is the whole point of the show. It is hold, sell, or trade my Wicket figure. And again, I think I paired him with the wrong spear. That's the animated version, but I do have the right one. And again, I'll show that just real quick. I just paired them wrong when I did the pictures. I paired them with the wrong spears. They are both Wicket spear, but the different versions of them. So again, hold, sell, or trade on Wicket. And so moving on now, by the way, I'm curious if you realized which figure I'm missing, which I feel like I totally feel like I had all the Ewok figures. So I'm wondering if I lost it, if I, I don't know. I don't think I sold it. So I'm wondering if I lost it, or maybe it got sent to my cousins, because my mom would do that sometimes. She would send old toys to my cousins. So I'm kind of wondering, because I feel like I had all of the live action Ewoks, but I'm missing one, right? If you know what I'm talking about, if you are a collector yourself or you're into this line, you know that I am missing one of the live action Ewoks. So that would be something that I guess I would have to actually buy if I wanted to have a complete set, right? If I wanted to have all the Ewoks. So that does go into my mindset as well as whether I should hold these or not. It's like, well, if I don't have the complete collection, maybe that is more of an argument to start selling them. You know, I don't know. So what do you think? Now, moving on, here's a good segue. We're still got Endor. So this is the Endor Rebel Trooper, the Rebel Commando, I think a lot of people also call him. I can't remember his official name. You can see that his weapon is not broken. I think a lot of times the strap gets broken. So I did want to show that in this picture that the strap for his gun is not broken. This is a cool figure. Obviously, it goes very well with my Ewok collection. So that is an argument for keeping it, I guess, is for holding it, but hold, sell, or trade on the Endor Rebel Commando, which I think, again, pairs very well with my Ewoks. And here's another figure. I believe his name is Pruneface. This figure was always fascinating to me. So this is one of those figures that you blink and you miss him, right? In fact, I remember as a kid, I saw Return of the Jedi in the movie theater, and I did not remember this character at all. But for some reason, I remember for some reason, I think it was actually at a grocery store. I have this vague memory that every once in a while, the grocery store would have Star Wars figures, the one that I went to growing up. And this figure was there, and it was like the only figure they had, and I got it. And I thought he was interesting looking. I should have taken a picture of him without the cloak on. I apologize for not doing that, just so you could see the real condition of the figure. But one thing you can see here, obviously, is he does have his weapon, and the strap is not broken. I'm sure that's an issue with these figures where the strap gets broken quite a bit. So in this particular version, obviously, the strap is still complete. So I believe his name is Pruneface. It's funny because it wasn't until I saw the special edition in the movie theater as an adult that finally I was like, oh, he really is in the movie. You can distinctly see him. And I always wonder what happened to him, because you don't see him during the battle, right? And you don't see him when they're destroying the shield generator. He's not with the commandos, as far as I recall. He apparently went off on his own to do something, and it's never really explained. I think on his card back, it does say something like he's a spy or something like that. Like it says something along those lines. And I'm curious if anybody knows if there's some maybe expanded universe stuff out there about this figure and what his role actually was during the Battle of Endor, because he really is like blink and you miss him. I know he's at least in one of the scenes where they're on the Imperial shuttle, and I know when they're very first are like kind of piling, basically just like when they kind of have an establishing shot of the rebels going through the woods, he's with them, but then all of a sudden he just disappears and you never see him again. So he's an obscure figure, but for whatever reason, I liked him. I got him. Like I said, I think I actually got this because it was at a grocery store and it was just the only Star Wars figure they had. So I was like, hey, Star Wars figure. And my mom was feeling generous, so she got me this figure. So hold, sell, or trade. And again, I believe his name is Pruneface, but I'm not 100% positive. But he does look to be complete. This one is not complete. This is Num Nub. Is that right? And I'm trying to just remember from my actual memory who these characters are. This is, of course, was the co-pilot with Lando during the second Death Star run, and very popular figure. I felt that he was actually kind of done dirty in the Disney Wars, Star Wars. What was that? The Force Awakens. I felt like they really kind of just made him like just another generic pilot, which didn't make any sense to me, because at that point he should be like a big leader, if not in the rebellion or whatever, the resistance, right? I don't even go there. I'm sorry. If you like Disney Wars, hey, more power to you. I do not. Other than Rogue One. I love Rogue One. I own Rogue One, so I'm not a complete Disney Wars hater, but I didn't like what they did with this character. So the one thing I will say is he's not complete. I remember losing the gun. I remember really liking the gun, and I remember being very disappointed, even as a kid, that I lost the gun. But I don't think he held it all that well. I guess I'll use that justification. But yes, so he's not complete. And I do wish I had some more pictures. Like at least I should have tried to take a picture of the back. But he's in pretty good condition from what I can see and from what I remember when I was when I was taking this picture. So hold, sell, or trade. Hold, sell, or trade. This is the B-wing pilot. Now you can't really see it that well in this picture, but his legs are a little bit bent. You can kind of see it if you really look. You can see that his legs are a little bit bent. So he's not in the best condition. I remember losing his gun right away. He had a very small gun. And I remember even thinking that as a kid, like, dude, I'm going to lose this, even though like I took care of my toys, and you can see a lot of my toys are still complete, but I knew this guy's gun was so wimpy and so small. I think I lost it like immediately. But this is the B-wing pilot. The funny thing is, I really wanted the A-wing pilot. Because I was really into the scene in Return of the Jedi when Green Leader, sacrifices himself to destroy the Super Star Destroyer. I really like that character. I really am into a lot of obscure Star Wars characters that are really relevant. And the Green Leader in Return of the Jedi is an awesome character. I was really fascinated. Plus, I love the A-wing. When I never got it. Which, by the way, the A-wing was part of the droids line. Technically, it was, as I understand it, it wasn't part of the initial Star Wars line. It was part of the droids line. But so this is the B-wing pilot. I don't know why I got him instead of the A-wing pilot, because again, I was very into Green Leader. But for whatever reason, I got the B-wing pilot. And the funny thing is, I never had a B-wing, and I never had an A-wing. The A-wing was my thing. I really liked it. And it's funny because I will show you my one and only droid figure in a little bit, although I kind of messed up on the picture. But I never got either one of them. I did have a friend who had a B-wing, and that was a really cool toy, man. That was a really sweet toy. But so I have the figure, the B-wing pilot. Hold, sell, or trade on my B-wing pilot. He is not complete. He does not have his accessory, and it's hard to tell, but one of his legs is kind of bent too. So he's not like in the greatest condition. But I guess one argument too is if you do think I should hold it, should I try to get the gun? I actually was watching another YouTube channel recently, and he was getting all of the Star Wars figures up until the cartoons, right? So he got all of the movie figures, if you will, the original movie figures, and he was talking about how he had certain items already from his childhood collection, and he had to acquire the weapons. Which are expensive, right? They're really expensive. Although my understanding is there are repos now. And I'm curious what people think about that. Like, what if I was to get a repo for the B-wing pilot, if I did decide to hold him? And that would be the same with this figure as well. Should I try to get, repos or something like that so I can have them complete? I wonder what folks think about that. All right, this is an interesting figure. This is the mail order version of the Emperor. Okay. And I'm curious if anybody knows, is there a way to distinguish that? Because my understanding is the Emperor was released on a card back as well. So I'm curious if anybody knows if there's a way to make that distinction. I know my version for a fact is the mail order version. And I don't know if there's any way to make a distinction on that, if they're more rare, if they're more coveted, or they're less coveted. Maybe it's actually the card back version that people want. But I wish I still had the original box, because I remember I actually did keep the box for a little while for some reason. I was like storing something in it. And I remember that as a kid. But this is the mail order version of the Emperor. As you can see, he is complete. I mean, all he has is a cane. This is the back of him. He's in pretty good condition. This is one of those figures that I think is kind of hard to mess up, right? Because like the way that his legs are, see the bottom of his feet there and everything like that. But this is my mail order version of the Emperor. And I am curious if anybody knows, is there a way to make a distinction about that? Is one more coveted than the other? Because I'm pretty sure the Emperor also came out on a card back. But again, this is the mail order version. And I don't know if there's any way to distinguish that with collectors and whether one version or the other is more coveted. But hold, sell, or trade on my mail order version of the Emperor. Mail order version. So I actually, got the little proofs of purchases and actually sent away for this guy. So, and again, I'm just curious if anybody knows if there's a way to distinguish that, between, because I'm pretty sure there was a card back version of the Emperor as well. But the one that I just showed you, This is the mail order version of the Emperor. This is the medical droid. As you can see, his leg is bent. I think I showed that pretty well in this picture, which kind of stinks. But yeah, his leg is bent. And of course, his accessory is missing. I'm sure his accessory is like very hard to find, because that thing, it's just basically like a little, I don't even know what you call it, like a little probe or something like that goes into his claw, and it doesn't fit in there all that great, like it's kind of loose. So I'm sure that's lost all the time. But I would imagine sometimes his little I don't know what you call that. It's kind of funny because he's a droid, but it looks like he has like a breathing apparatus, right? And I seem to remember friends of mine that they lost that piece. So mine does have that. So that's, I guess, 1 plus on the medical droid. But again, he's missing his accessory. One of his legs are bent. So hold, sell, or trade on the medical droid. I'll be honest. I don't have a lot of emotional attachment to this one. It's like of the ones I've shown you, probably this one and the B-Wing pilot, I have like the least emotional attachment. The Emperor is such a classic figure. That's kind of like, I don't know. But yeah, this is one that he's not in the best of shape. So I'd be curious what people think. If I was to sell it, what do you think the value would be? Because he is missing his accessory, and one of his legs, as you can see, is clearly bent. So I don't know what this thing would be worth. Speaking of figures that are not in the best of condition, this is my Bespin Han. Okay, and you can see this is ratty, right? This is in bad shape, and I wonder what people think about this. By the way, what do collectors think of figures that are in this bad of condition? So I mean, it's still a vintage figure, right? But this is obviously a figure that was very, very played with. Now you will notice if you've been watching, right? If you've been noticing my other figures are in pretty good shape, right? I mean, let's be honest. I mean, I took pretty good care of this stuff, and I did play with this stuff. This is stuff from my childhood collection. And if you look at it, they're in pretty darn good shape. So you might be wondering, hey, what's up with this one? Why is that one so bad? Base God, what'd you do with this one? Well, there is a story behind my Bespin Han. So I grew up going to Catholic school, okay? And one of the things that would happen at Catholic school was that if you misbehaved, or if you brought things to school that were considered inappropriate, or, sometimes stuff would get lost. But a lot of times what happened was the teachers would confiscate toys. Like if you were playing with toys, like in class, the teacher would come and take the toy from you. And when I was growing up and going to Catholic school, that was perfectly fine. I can't talk about public school at the time, but at private school, at Catholic school, if a teacher took your toy, that's it. You know what I mean? It wasn't like your parents going to come over and yell at the teacher, especially when the teacher might be a nun. They're not going to yell at the nun and say the kid needs his toy back. That was it. So the question you might be asking yourself, if you didn't have that experience, is, so what did the teachers do with the confiscated toys? Well, what they did was they gave them as rewards to children that were behaving well. That's what they did. And I was I was basically a goody two shoes. I mean, I was a very well-behaved child when I was young. And I remember distinctly one year, the teacher pulled out all these confiscated toys, confiscated and lost. Some of them had been just stuff that kids lost and nobody claimed, and said, hey, this is your reward for doing good this year, for attendance, whatever it was, or for just being a good kid. Pick one. And this is what I picked. So this was actually a confiscated toy from probably one of my classmates. And I got it as a reward for being a good kid, a good student, or whatever. And that's why it's in such terrible condition. You can tell that this is something where they played outside with it. And this was a kid who didn't really take good care of his toys. Obviously, he's missing his weapon, but that's why this Bespin Han is in such bad shape. And I'm curious, hold, sell, or trade. I mean, what do you think this is worth? I mean, obviously he's in terrible condition, and his joints are very loose too. I mean, this is something that was not well taken care of, but it was well loved, right? It's in well loved condition. Okay. And let's see here. This is my Chewbacca figure. Now, I believe my brother may have his own Chewbacca figure. So I'm a little confused whether this is truly my Chewbacca figure or whether it might be my brother's, or whether maybe I didn't have one. But I feel like my brother had his own Chewbacca and I had my own Chewbacca. That's what I feel like. And I have to check the collection of my brother's figures to see if there is another Chewbacca in there. But I feel like there is. And I'm curious if I do have two Chewbaccas, do you guys know if there's a way to determine like what series that they were? Because I'm sure if my brother's Chewbacca, I'm sure came with, from the original, line, like the first wave. My Chewbacca probably came from like Return of the Jedi or something like that. Now, obviously, I don't have the card backs, but I'm curious if anybody knows if this is in fact a second Chewbacca. Is there a way for me to differentiate it if my brother does in fact have his own Chewbacca? So as far as I know, the way I remember it, we both had Chewbaccas. So, but I haven't confirmed that. So this could actually be a wave one Chewbacca. But if it's how I remember it, this might be a Return of the Jedi Chewbacca, and I don't know exactly how you distinguish that. I'm sure there's also, obviously there are Empire Strike Back Chewbaccas too. Like I'm sure that he came out in all the different card backs. So anyway, this is my Chewbacca. I would be curious, if people know how to figure out which one he is, if there is a way to figure out which one he is, or if it's just like when they're loose like this, it is what it is. But this is Chewbacca. I believe my Chewbacca, and I do believe that my brother has another Chewbacca, but I haven't confirmed that. So it could be my brother's Chewbacca. He might have slid in there, but the way I remember it is we both had our own Chewbacca for whatever reason. So now this is the Bounty Hunter Leia. This is her with the helmet on. And here's a picture of her with the helmet off. So you can kind of see the condition of her face. I really probably should have zoomed in on her face, especially since you can see the condition of the figure pretty well in this picture. And it is in pretty good shape. I am missing her gun, which I'm kind of like, how did I lose her gun? Because her gun was huge. So I have no idea how I would have lost that, because as you can see, like I've got the gun for my Chewbacca, I've got the cane for my Emperor. But it's sort of it's just weird, right? These things were played with. These were played with toys. They're loose. But for some reason I've lost her gun, and her gun was massive. But I do like this figure. And again, hold, sell, or trade on Bounty Hunter Leia. And the other question would be, should I try to get the gun? And if I get the gun, should I try to get an original version of the gun or a repo? What do you think? I mean, if I'm just going to display it, I don't think it really matters if I get a repo. But obviously, if I want to sell it and try to sell it as complete, I don't know how much sense it makes to try to get that gun, because it feels sometimes like the accessories are more than the figure, right? Because they're just hard to get, because people want to have them with the figure, right? So it's like they're hard to get. This is my Hoth Luke. I really like this figure. You can tell he was well loved. This one I noticed is not in the best of condition, and this was my figure. It's not like I got it from somebody else or anything like that. But I remember playing with him quite a bit, and you're going to see why in a second too, because I have a great accessory for him. But you can see his gun is right there. It's complete. It's not broken. I imagine the strap gets broken. I like the fact that you can do this. It helps so that the weapon doesn't get lost. But you can see that, his paint's not terrible. You know what I mean? He is getting some yellowing and stuff. You can see in the back. I took quite a few pictures of this figure. I think in part because I realized that he is a little bit, well loved. That's the term I'm going to use, because you can see that some of the paint just isn't that great. So it's like hold, sell, or trade on the Hoth Luke, but he can't just be the Hoth Luke. He has to have his Tauntaun. So I do have the Tauntaun. You can see it's more or less complete. It's missing the harness, right? It's missing the strap that goes into the Tauntaun's mouth, if I remember right. But the nice thing is he does have his saddle. I know a lot of my friends, even growing up, they would break the saddle and they would lose it, because this saddle, especially if you for whatever reason, if you put it on and take it off a lot, it will break. It will break because the plastic is not like, it's just not that durable. But this is the Tauntaun with Luke, and so I feel like if I was to sell one, I'd have to sell the other. Like I'd have to sell them as a set. And I'm curious what people think about that. But if I keep them, that's the way to display it, right? So hold, sell, or trade on my Tauntaun. And again, I feel like it's got to go with the Luke, right? They just go together so well. So they have to go together. Incidentally, my brother has the Hoth Han Solo, which would also go very well with the Tauntaun, right? That's also one that would go well with the Tauntaun. But I only have one Tauntaun. Also, I'm curious what folks think. Do you think the Tauntaun should be regarded as an action figure, or do you think the Tauntaun is a vehicle? I think that's a good question to put out there. Like the Tauntaun is really in the middle. Like for me, I actually consider like Jabba the Hutt, the Rancor, and the Wampa to be action figures. And I know a lot of people don't for whatever reason, but to me, they're action figures. But the Tauntaun has like a special place. Is the Tauntaun an action figure, or is the Tauntaun a vehicle? How do you catalog it as far as your collection? But again, hold, sell, or trade on the Tauntaun and Luke. Speaking of Luke, this is another version of Luke. You can, I wish I kind of zoomed on his face. You can actually, even in this picture, you can kind of see there is some like the paint is coming off of his nose. He is missing his gun. But he has his cloak, and he does have his lightsaber, but he is missing his gun. So he's not complete. And I don't know how well you can see in this picture, but his face is not in the best of shape. Again, I'm sorry about these cloak figures. Like, I should have taken pictures with them without the cloak on, just so you could see the condition of the figure better. But he is nearly complete. He's just missing his gun. And again, if I was to keep this, should I try to get the gun? And should I try to get an original version, or should I try to get a repo version of the gun to have him complete? Honestly, I kind of feel like I don't want to hold this one simply because he's not complete and because he's not in the best of shape. So, but again, hold, sell, or trade on Jedi Luke. This is another interesting one. This is my cloth Jawa. I know that the vinyl Jawa is far more coveted, but this is my Jawa. I always liked, small characters and stuff. I was a little kid when Star Wars came out, so I gravitated towards things like Jawas, Ewoks, R2-D2, anything that was kind of cute. I liked as a kid. And the funny thing is, my brother, he had his own Jawa as well, and he actually has the playset. In fact, when I show my brother's collection, if I'm able to do that in a future episode, I'll show you the playset. He had the actual Sandcrawler playset, the one that was paper, but the base was plastic, and he still has it, and it's not necessarily the greatest shape because it is paper. It is what it is, but it's still complete as far as I know, and it also comes with the escape pod. But anyway, this is my Jawa. I know my brother has one too, and I believe my brother's is cloth as well. I know the vinyl Jawa is much more coveted, but this was probably probably issued on Return of the Jedi card back. I would be interested to know if anybody knows if there's a way to differentiate my Jawa from my brother's Jawa, other than the fact that this was with my stuff, and so I can say it was my Jawa. I'm curious if people know if there's any way to figure out like which wave of Jawa it is, because this I believe is obviously mine, but I could have confused it with my brother's, right? And I believe my brother's with the cloth Jawa as well. But this is my Jawa. Hold, sell, or trade. And again, how do you, like the Chewbacca I was talking about earlier, how do you figure out which wave these are from? If anybody has an insight on that, I would be really appreciative. This picture is bad. I'm going to say right off the bat. Actually, I'm going to do the coin first. So this is Kez Iban or Iban. I don't know how you pronounce it. I remember this character, but I don't remember his name at all. This is the Lost Prince from the Droids line. This is my one and only Droids figure. I almost didn't show this because you'll see the picture. Well, I'll show the picture. All I have is the back. The picture I took of the front came out so terrible because it got washed out basically by the flash. I was kind of experimenting with using the flash and not using the flash, and he got completely washed out. But the good thing you can see is that he does have his satchel. And I believe this is his gun. Now, I don't know any way to figure that out for sure. Obviously, this is the stormtrooper gun and also I think a lot of the different other Imperial figures would have this type of gun. But I believe it actually came with my droid figure, my one and only droid figure, the Kirstie Alley. Okay, so I don't know if there's any way to figure that out. Like, I don't know if there's anything would be different about these guns that were issued in the droids line, or if they're just super generic. But I feel like that goes with this figure, and therefore he's complete. But I'm not positive. So if anybody has some insight in that, I'd appreciate it. But again, hold, sell, or trade. I feel like the droid figures are pretty rare. Again, I wish I had a good picture of the front. I apologize about that. But I do have the coin, and I believe this is his gun. But I don't know. I don't know for sure. And I don't know if that's the type of gun that he was supposed to have or he did have or whatever. But again, I apologize for the quality of the picture. I know that the front would be kind of nice to see. But again, hold, sell, or trade on Kirstie Alley, I believe, complete. I believe he's complete, but obviously loose. Now, I have some figures here that I don't know if you would call them figures, and I don't know where they're from. And I am very, very curious if anybody can give me some help and some insight into figuring out what these figures actually are. So these are from the animated shows. And this is the animated C-3PO. I am really wondering what this is. I'm trying to remember where I got this, trying to have any memory, and I feel like maybe I got it at Disneyland. That's what's kind of like, but I have no idea. I just cannot remember. And I don't know exactly what these are. You know, I don't know if these are supposed to be figures or if they're like erasers. You can see some sort of a mark on his arm there. I don't know if that's actually like a brand mark or that's supposed to be part of the character. I'm really having difficulty identifying what these things are. And I mentioned that when I was taking these pictures, I didn't have my glasses with me, so I didn't really have a chance to really take really examine these to see if I could find any trademarks or anything like that. But this is, I don't know. This is my C-3PO, animated C-3PO thing, and you can see he's not posable. So he is not posable. He is not a figure from the actual droids Kenner line. I don't know who made this. I don't know if Kenner made this. I don't know if it's supposed to be like an eraser or something like that, but it doesn't feel like an eraser. And I should have actually probably put him with another figure so you could see the scale, because he's about the same size as a regular Star Wars figure. But if anybody can help me identify this, definitely I would like some help, because I feel like I might have something that's pretty rare here, because I feel like anything droids is rare, and this is like maybe rarer than rare. So, and to compliment him, I do have an R2-D2, and this thing is very solid. It does almost feel like it might be an eraser or something like that, but then again, it feels like it's too solid to be an eraser. And I'm not going to try to use it as an eraser because I don't want to screw it up. It feels very solid. Okay, so I don't think these are erasers. But again, the scale there, this is about, I should have taken a picture with it with some regular figures, but it's about the right size to be with the regular figures, but it's not. It's not posable. It's stuck the way it is. It's not posable at all. Nothing moves. Again, if anybody has some insight, I would really appreciate it. Trying to identify what these things are and whether they are rare, whether they are coveted, all that kind of stuff. And I do know, even because something's rare doesn't mean it's valuable, but if it is rare, it's probably something that I should like hold on to, right? So again, if anybody knows. And then here's another one. This is actually Wicket. Okay, this is animated Wicket. Again, I feel like it's from the same line because they all kind of go together. It's not posable at all. It's not posable. A different angle of the back. This one you can see sort of a trademark on the side, but I'm not able to really read it. Trying to read it right now, actually, and I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm having trouble. So if you're able to identify this figure and this particular line, let me know, because I would really appreciate some insight. And again, hold, sell, or trade. Right now, I would say I want to hold these figures at least until I figure out what they are and figure out if there's any worth to them. But I don't even know really where to start. And I don't know. They almost look like they came in a set together, right? But then it also feels like if they did come in a set together, like it also feels like maybe I'm missing something, but I don't know. And I really need to want some information on these figures. So these are my mystery figures. And I might do a clip of this where I just ask people, what are these things? What are these things? Do you know? Do you have any idea what these figures are? And also, do you have any idea what they might be worth? Because I have no idea. I have no clue what these things are. I have no clue if they're rare, if they're coveted, if they're worth anything. I'm sure they're worth something because anything Droids or Ewoks cartoon is rare, I think by definition, just because they weren't successful lines. But these things are different. These things are different, and I like I said, vaguely, I feel like maybe I got them at Disneyland, but I'm just like, I have no idea. I cannot remember. And when I saw these, I was just like, wow, what the heck are these things? And I kind of remember having them as a kid and stuff and playing with them. But again, if you can identify these mystery Star Wars figures, I would really appreciate it. If you have any insight, please comment. Please comment and please like and share my video. I'm going to continue this chronicle of my figures, and I'm going to keep doing it. So that is going to be about it for now. I appreciate anybody that checked out the show. I appreciate that I did get some comments. I appreciate Mike, who was out here earlier from the Netherlands. I appreciate him commenting on the show. And I think that'll be it for now. Future episode, I will continue to be documenting toys, and I will probably continue to be doing some reviews and all sorts of stuff. So keep tuning in. Please, again, like and share.